Hi, everyone. Thank you, Athena, for the introduction. Today, I will be talking about a little bit of my design practice and research related to sustainable interactive materials. So, as Athena mentioned, my background is in architecture. I did a Master's of Fine Arts in Design at UC Davis, and I'm currently doing my PhD at the Atlas Institute. Um, so, I would like to start by kind of mentioning what are those materials that I'm working with. And I would say that there might be not super conventional. They are gelatin based, which comes from connective tissues of um, animals from land, like cows and pigs, but also it can come from fish. Um, Agar based materials that come from algae, usually mainly like red, brown algae, and chitosan, which it comes from seashells. So these materials are considered like bio-based materials, or for short, biomaterials. And the way I've engaged with these materials in my practice and developing human-computer interaction applications has been through developing some fabrication methods and tools to work with them, as well as some applications. So just to kind of focus a little bit of what this talk is going to be about, I've used and worked with these materials to develop applications for interactive textiles and wearable technology, all which are like, let's say, some areas of research within human-computer interaction. And you might think, like, where does the biodesign comes or takes place? And I could say that like there is a bigger umbrella that's part of my design practice, and that is based on some of like the using biodesign as a framework for designing with these biomaterials, and also research through design, which is another method that if people are interested, you can just like take a look. But basically that means that through the process of making or of fabricating, we are getting some learnings that we carry out into our next iterations. So rather than imposing, our design ideas into materials, we are working with materials and attuning to the materials properties to inspire the next iteration of our work. So I will share a little bit of like what is the motivation for why do I use these materials for interactive textiles. So if we think about textiles, they are a canvas for creativity. And these textiles really kind of show we are covering textiles, and we have textiles all around our house, such as like in cushion, like in our furniture, um, bed, and everything. So it's textiles are a canvas for creativity. But when we are thinking about interactive textiles, basically what we are understand by interactive, or what's commonly understood by interactive, is that electronics are embedded in textiles. So we have these two components, fabrics on one side, electronics in another. We combine them, and by electronics is usually soft electronics, so electronics that can bend. And we combine them together to make these interactive textiles. Sometimes they can be like LEDs, like this project of photonic textiles. And one of the things that I kind of noticed in my work and in my research was that sustainability is often framed as an afterthought of the design process. It's like we think about sustainability at the very end of the design process. And I wanted to, bring it sooner. So I'm kind of noticing that in interactive textiles, one of the biggest problems is that we're combining textile waste with electronic waste. And that creates like a much bigger problem that we currently have with these two separate waste streams. So the leading kind of research question, or the question that I had in mind throughout my research and my PhD, was like, how can we design interactive textiles with sustainability in mind? And I do that through like my approach is through using biodesign as a framework. Biodesign is just a design practice in which we think about life cycles. We think about materials, we think about where the materials are coming from, which fabrication techniques we are using, are they accessible or not, and what happens with like the technology that we create at the end of life. Can we like turn them back into new raw materials? Could we reuse, recycle? How do we extend the life of this artifact, let's say? Um, Something else that I have focused on has been formulating biomaterials, gelatin-based, agar-based, chitosan-based, and I will kind of show a few projects that tackle that or show that. And I've also, with my research team, we developed also fabrication tools, such as this biofiber spinning machine, which really opens up a design space for customizing fibers that are made out of biomaterials. So my exploration has been at the prototyping level. The material is central to the design process, and the fabrication tools aim to democratize access to, for example, fiber prototyping. That's something that we noticed that was kind of like a gap. So I will start with this project called Biofoam as interactive material. And this biofoam is basically a gelatin-based foam. All of these projects, just to mention, they all have their own publications. So if people are interested, you can go and take a look. But yeah, in this project, we were thinking, if gelatin can be made into foam, how can we, how could we incorporate this biomaterial into the way that we normally do interactive textiles? So we wanted to explore these opportunities that happen when we design interactive textiles within a biodesign framework. So again, going back to life cycle, we think about, what are the ingredients of this foam? We only have three ingredients, which is like gelatin, water, glycerin, and it can be a foaming agent like dish soap. And we mix them together, and then we can create this foam. We used the reason why we chose gelatin in this context was because we are based in Colorado and we have like butchers everywhere here. So we kind of were thinking, it's like when gelatin doesn't go to human consumption or the gelatin has expired, how can we use this material and repurpose the material to make new material? We think about the fabrication process. So in this project, we used a very accessible tools, and also we explored the use. How would we use this foam into interactive textiles? And at the end of life, what do we do with the leftovers, or how do we repurpose these artifacts that we create? So here you can see, this is a video of the chameleon accessories that starts with the design, like tracing how I would imagine the accessories to look like. And then kind of like in the process of cooking, mixing the materials, the ingredients together, gelatin, water, glycerin, dish soap, creating this foam, like much more like making a meringue, and extruding the material, in this case using a syringe, and shaping it in the design that we have made at the beginning. So the part of like interaction comes when we embedded some pigments, thermosensitive, UV sensitive pigments into the meringue. And the material can change color when exposed to light, to UV light, or when exposed to heat. So since the pigments are not, let's say, reharvestable, or like we cannot reharvest the pigments once they are already combined with the gelatin foam, what we think about how to close the loop in this life cycle would be by remelting the material. Like, for instance, this chest piece could be remelted, and next time it can be a bracelet. And we melt it again, and then it can be turned into earrings, or like, yeah, we can do that multiple times. So some of the things for the chameleon accessories that we noticed is that biomaterials really allow for material customization. So we can customize the fabrication technique, we can customize the aesthetics, we can also customize the mechanical properties. And we explore a lot of these in the paper, but basically the mechanical properties can be customized by how much air we incorporate in the mixing of the gelatin biofoam. We also incorporated in the biofoam some stainless steel fibers to make a pressure sensor. So something that's common in interactive textiles is that we work with sensors, and sensors are often soft. So in this case, by incorporating stainless steel in the foam, one of the good qualities of it is that gelatin biofoam could be dissolved in warm water, and that will enable that the reharvesting of the stainless steel fibers that were embedded in this pressure sensor. And by that, we would be like allowing this process of like trying to close the loop and reusing these stainless steel fibers and make them into a new thread. And we can reuse that conductive thread into another application. So something that, well, someone might ask, what happens with the gelatin? When the gelatin is already dissolved in water, it's pretty safe to dispose it off. Like we can, flush it down the drain. But also if we just like heat it up again, all the water content could be evaporated until we get back all the gelatin polymer and reuse it for a new material. So what new opportunities arise when we design, textiles within a biodesign framework? That was the question at the beginning. So we noticed that, it enables material customization, low-tech fabrication, exploration, and it also even allow us to embed interaction in the material, rather than only having like embedded electronics. So biomaterial, something that we noticed in this biomaterial of gelatin biofoam was that this quality of dissolving was pretty, let's say, unique. And we found it unique because we kind of started noticing that dissolving could be an opportunity, a design opportunity for also sustainable interactive textiles when we use it intentionally. So that inspired this next project of dissolving wearables. And in dissolving wearables, we explore new form factors of this gelatin biofoam, new fabrication techniques as well, because we were trying to make biofoam in the shape of a yarn. And we also explore design for disassembly. So these are the biofoam yarns. They are pretty chunky. Imagine like this is just like chunky yarns. And in the paper, we we explain in detail the fabrication process to get kind of like a circular cross section, like a yarn. So in this project, we have, we explore using the dissolving of the biofoam yarn in strategic areas where we would like to, this was a video. In areas where we would intentionally, as designers of textiles, would like it to disappear, to unravel something, or to reveal another design that's underneath. So these are seasonal footwear. Everything that's in color is biofoam yarn, and everything that's in black is regular cotton yarn. The sandals were crocheted by Lily, one of our research team. And the idea kind of like was that what happens if we wear them in one season and then we wash it away, and for the next season we can have the biofoam dissolved and kind of like showing or giving us another design of the sandals where only the cotton yarns remain. This other accessory was a bralette that was crocheted by Michaela, and we were thinking, it's like if we use the biofoam in areas where we intentionally would like to dissolve in certain scenarios, such as getting in the pool or going to a theme party, and there is, I don't know, some humidity, or we go to the jungle, then some areas can dissolve and it will reveal a few other designs that were underneath that the biofoam yarn, kind of revealing new colors. And in this other wearable, which is unfolding lace top, that was knitted by Chanel wool. Chanel was like, we were also testing, right? How does biofoam yarns could be used in different textile structures, knitting, crocheted, and woven. So in this case, we used the biofoam in specific areas of the garment. So then after it dissolves, it could unfold into a new shape, going from, like, imagine like short sleeve to long sleeve. So yeah, in this project, we really kind of like challenged this idea that interaction does not always need electronics. Interaction could be also embraced through material, through using a material in specific ways. So in this case, if the material dissolves, that could trigger interaction, which is like unfolding or revealing something in the garment. So this project was very more into the area of like critically thinking about what it means for a material to be interactive. And it also made us notice that in order to make or to incorporate biomaterials more seamlessly into textile structures, we would need to get to the backbone of textiles, which are fibers. So up until here, all of our fabrication techniques, let's say, have been like extruding the material, right, to make chunky yarns. But then how can we make fibers? Fibers are like very thin, thin materials, or regular fibers we think about, like hair, such as um, sheep's hair is very, very thin, and sometimes they are short or sometimes can be long. So how do we do that? And that made us get into kind of like a rabbit hole of learning how fibers are made, man-made fibers, basically the ones that are made by humans and not the ones that we already find in nature, such as like flax or wool, right? So how man-made fibers are made. So we noticed that really the way that these fibers are made are usually in using a specialized equipment and that requires specialized knowledge, and this equipment usually lives in material science departments or chemistry departments. And as designers, we don't have access. We don't have easy access to this machinery. So I had like my firsthand experience, let's say, with these machines, trying to create fibers from gelatin. Since up until there, we've been working with gelatin a lot. So I did a summer in Arvetech, in Aachen University in Germany, kind of like bringing my own material and the liquid that we have developed up by then, and trying to see, okay, how does this material fit into like existing equipment and also fabrication workflows. Something that I learned in the process was like in this spinning process, and it's called wet spinning because the material is spun under like a bath. We need to know a lot about material preparation, a lot about how fibers are spun, and processing. So this is just like a sneak peek of how it looks like when the gelatin is being extruded through this nozzle. There are like 150 fibers there, gelatin fibers, and that are being produced or spun. But something that is like good to pay attention in this video is that this machine has been ad hoc. So I went there and I noticed that through the current fabrication workflow, I was not able to make gelatin fibers. The fabrication workflow has been standardized for mainly like homogeneous material and synthetic materials like polyester or even like carbon fibers, but not for biomaterials. So I had to really like hack the machine, all the parts, so then I can keep the same temperature at the moment of extrusion, And it was just like this video that you see here just happened in the last 2 days of my summer there. But it really inspired what we kind of like did after when I was back in the lab here, noticing that it was difficult, it was not easy. So if we really want to support designers and HCI researchers to explore a different biomaterial form factors, and in this case, it was mainly leaning towards the space of textiles, what tools do we need to have? And that inspired the development of this open source desktop biofiber spinning machine, which is the size of like pretty much a regular 3D printer, but all the fabrication workflow is inspired by the big machine, let's say. It's like we have correlated parts, and we believe that if a biomaterial can be spun in this machine, it can be spun also in a bigger machine. So this is our approach to sustainable smart textiles. We really hope that this open source biofiber spinning machine could support the customization and prototyping and fabrication of fibers that are made out of biomaterials. We have a design space for customizing the fibers that we want with the probably colors we want, thickness we want, mechanical properties we want. And we have also shown in this research project how this material or gelatin biofibers could be incorporated into smart textile applications. Some of the components of this desktop biofiber spinning machine, kind of getting into digital fabrication, is that we repurposed an Ender 3 and parts of it, and then the other parts are really following, what's needed for making fibers and collecting fibers. In the customization side, if you're curious, we can customize the fibers in different phases, let's say. If we are collaborating, for instance, with material scientists or chemistry people, we can customize it at the spinning solution level, basically at the polymeric level when we are creating the solution. However, for designers, we can also customize it when the material has been already, or the fibers have been already spun. This is the natural color of the biofiber, of the gelatin fibers, but then we can add color through like using food dyes or bio-based pigments into the different baths where the roller kind of like is rolling at the moment of extrusion, and then we can add color. So the purpose of the different rollers and baths is that we could customize the fibers as it moves along, as the fibers move along in the drying process. We can add colors. Sometimes we can also make it more elastic by adding a plasticizer, which means like something that will make it softer and like elastic, such as glycerin. That allows for that is a plasticizer. And for the ones who are interested in more of the mechanical properties, we have noticed that based on its cross-section of the fibers of zero, I will show it in a minute, but it's very thin as like hair. So we noticed that in tensile strength, the fibers are pretty strong, very much close to what PLA is. PLA, this filament for 3D printing. So that was very promising, and that kind of like led to new projects that right now are happening in the lab, which is like developing 3D printing material with like gelatin and other biomaterials. But getting back to the mechanical properties of gelatin fibers, when they are in a dry state, they are very like the tensile strength is pretty good, I would say. But we can see also that when it gets into like a humid environment, they can that strength drops significantly, like a third of it, I would say. Something that we have noticed is also that the gelatin biofibers, it takes coating really well, and this coating was added in one of the baths, and we were adding UV the pigments for like UV activation, so we can see that the change of there is like a fade from blue to pink. Blue when it's activated or when it's exposed to UV light, and pink when it's not. So we can see that the fade out of it. And that also was like pretty good to see. That was part of some of the experiments. And then also we were able, with the prototyping machine, we were able to customize the thickness of the fibers. We can go from 0.03 to 0.2, which is like pretty thin, according to any applications that we might be thinking of. So the way that we do that is by accelerating, or like the speed of the collector, making it faster will make thinner fibers. So it's like we explain a little bit more of that correlation also in the paper. Some of the applications, as I mentioned before, were for smart textiles. So the reason why, again, we go back to smart textiles or interactive textiles is because separating textiles or fabrics from conductive materials are very difficult. So we noticed that, okay, we can make, by weaving, we can make a moisture sensor and also a pressure sensor, in which the gelatin biofibers could be on the weft, which is like horizontally, all the greenish color fibers, those are the gelatin biofibers. And then the white on like vertically are the cotton threads. And then we have some conductive threads. The conductive threads allow for like the pressure sensor, the closer they are, it's like reading that something is being pressed. And in the case of the moisture sensor, it's just adding some conductive, in this case, were silver threads. So then when water was passing from one thread to another, we can read that moisture is present. So the idea of these like single-use electronic pieces were that when we don't want them anymore, we can dissolve the gelatin with like warm water, and it will enable the separation, really like the disassembly of the woven piece. And then we can have the cotton threads on one side, the silver threads on another side, allowing or enabling for this easy either repurposing or recycling or proper recycling. But it's kind of like helping on that kind of challenge that we currently have in electronic textile or interactive textiles. Another way to use it is like when we also weave, we can have a layer of a woven textile that is with the biofibers on the top, and then the conductive material, which is silver threads at the bottom. And what that will allow us is that sometimes when we are doing on-body prototyping, so when we already have the fabric on the body, we have different, like humans have different measurements. So sometimes we don't know where to make the connection, where to do the soldering. So we could like put it already on the body, and then wherever we see it's a good place to do the soldering or the electronic connection, we can dissolve the top layer and have the conductive layer exposed, so we can do the soldering there, and then we will do some mending after that. Kind of like showing where does this spinning machine like good fit within this smart textile life cycle. Our open source spinning machine really supports the prototyping and the design process at the fiber level. So it's very early in the life cycle, and we see that there is a lot of opportunities like after that to also innovate or create tools that can support the use of biomaterials in this space of smart textiles. In this next project, which is bio-nails, it's more of like a wearable. We explore a sustainable design approach to just bio-based nail interfaces. So if some of you are kind of familiar with beauty technology, you might remember that maybe 10 years ago or 8, researchers were trying to use or explore what happens if I can use my nails for as an interface to connect with technology, to interact with technology, as same as like hair or extensions in hair, and also even like makeup, conductive makeup. So in this project, we really try to think about how the sustainability could be incorporated from the very beginning in the design process. So this is a sustainable material-led design approach to beauty technology. And what bio-nails are, they are customizable interactive artificial nails from bio-based materials. We explore them as temporary wearables that elevate self-expression, since we can customize shape, color, and all of that. They are designed for short-term use, such as like themed events, I don't know, Halloween. And the audience that we kind of see for like the insights that we got in this process are designers of beauty technology or even end users. So we kind of have three design values that we set from the very beginning of the design process. We wanted to have sustainability in mind, but we also wanted our prototyping or fabrication process to be replicable. And accessibility was also important because we wanted to use materials that are affordable and easy to find. So sustainability, the way we see that is through life cycle thinking. Again, going back to thinking in the life cycle of these bio-nails, and replicability through low-tech fabrication methods. So if we think about the life cycle of bio-nails, we have raw materials on one side. The second phase would be fabrication, the use phase, how we're using the nails, and the end of life, what happened with the bio-nails at their end of life. So breaking it down, the raw materials that we used were agar and chitosan. They each have their own solvent or like liquids in which they dissolve or mix well, such as water and vinegar. And then we also explore other other additives such as pigments or food dyes, but also embedding electronics, because why not? We just want to see what the nails can be capable of. In the fabrication process, we used for the bioplastic, the agar-based bioplastic, we use layering technique. So we made different bioplastic layers and then we put them together, and with heat, low heat, we kind of like create a thick layer that we can shape afterwards. So this is a video. In this video, you can see that after we shape it by putting some reusable nails on the top at the bottom, something like sandwiching it. So then when it dries, it takes the shape, and then we file it. We cut and file the nail until we get like a final nail. And with the chitosan-based nail, we use clay, the one that is often used for crafts, let's say. And with this clay, we created like the shape of a nail, and then we pour the material, the chitosan-based liquid or bioplastic on top of it, and then we file it after it's dried and get the shape that we were looking for. So both use different fabrication techniques, let's say. Being curious of the material properties, the agar-based nails, sorry. For material properties, we tried our best to balance the aesthetics and the functionality, which is very commonly explored in beauty technology, right? We want things to look beautiful, at the same time we want them to be functional. But the way that we approached that was not by us defining what aesthetics, or like, yes, partially, we know what aesthetics we wanted. However, we were also, observation was like part of the process. We were looking at how the material shapes, how the material dries, like naturally inherent properties or qualities of the material throughout the fabrication process. And then same for functionality. These hard to break, hold shape, and water resistance were things that came from the material, something that we noticed. So if we were to think about agar-based, we noticed that they are hard to break. They can be made like homogeneous, and also can be made like in a very like smooth surface, or has a smooth finish, sorry. And for the chitosan-based, we noticed that the chitosan-based nails hold shape really well. It's more water resistant than agar-based nails. It can also have a very smooth finish and can be made very thin, different than the agar-based one. The agar-based one, usually because of the layers that we put together, the nails end up being a little bit thicker than the ones made with chitosan. So as a way of like customizing aesthetics, let's say, something that we noticed for chitosan-based nails were that we can get smooth surfaces when we remove all the air bubbles that are in the liquid, in the bioplastic liquid or mixture. But then when we keep the bubbles in the by air, oh, I said air bubbles, sorry. I meant air bubbles. So the air bubbles in the mixture are when we keep it, then the nails can dry out very rough, which can be, you know, a way of like just having different aesthetics in the nails. If we are kind of thinking in a themed event, I would, you know, I would imagine that this is a quality that the user might like in their nails. Another way of customizing aesthetics was like noticing that when we are using powder pigments, that changed the opacity of the nails. However, when we were using water-based food dyes for the nails, in the agar-based nails, that gave us a lot of translucency. So water-based keep the bioplastic very translucent, whereas powder pigments make the bioplastic opaque. We also explore some crystals and shapes and length of the nails. Customizing, for customizing functionality, as mentioned before, we tried embedding electronic or NFCs, which is near field communication chip. It's something that it's usually in like your credit cards, our credit cards. Yeah, now they are made very, very small and they are flexible. So we were able to embed them in the nails as well, just to use our nails also as interactive interfaces. Another thing we explored was to add photosensitive and thermosensitive pigments in the nails, and that allowed our nails to just change color when exposed to light, to UV light, for instance, or to heat. So more of the use, how we imagine these nails being used for, can be found in our paper. But I would like to focus now on the end of life, which is something that came up when we were working with these biomaterials, where that we noticed that there can be multiple ways of ending the life of these bioinos. Sometimes these strategies will enable reuse, or sometimes will enable repurposing, or sometimes enable composting. Oh, can be made through composting, sorry. So observing how biomaterials interact with solvents led to the identification of 3 dynamic end-of-life strategies for bioinos. The first one being chemical. The biomaterial, for instance, the chitosan base dissolves in vinegar. So we would soften the nails, let's say at their end of life, when we immerse the chitosan base nails into vinegar. And then after it's softened for a few seconds, we can remove it and then take out all the electronics that can be embedded, or simply we can, like, after it's softened, we can grind the material back into a powder and reuse it for a new purpose. In the case of agar, it dissolves in warm water. So that's also, that would be like their chemical, the associated chemical to agar. The mechanical strategy, it's more just describing that, you know, to take pieces apart. After we soften, sometimes they can be used in combination, these strategies. We put it a little bit in like, let's say vinegar, the nails, and then mechanically we'll peel it off, or using tweezers or by hand, removing the electronic component. And in these two cases, or two strategies, the electronic components still work. We have tested that, and they still work after being exposed to these two end-of-life strategies. In the case of a biological, which means basically compost, that's the last end of life that we would imagine for the bioinos. We would like highly suggest to try to use the other two first, but then if it's not possible, put it into like a compost environment with high humidity and other microorganisms present that we can have in our garden. But some people also have like compost set up at home. We can put these bio nails in this compost environment, and then the nails will break down. All of these will break down the chitosan in close to 90 days and the agar base in 60 days. And then we can remove the electronic component, but all the rest of the bio nail would just like break down and be, food and create a compost for other microorganisms. In this case, the electronic component, what we noticed from our study is that is non-functional after being, for such a long time in this very hot environment or humid environment with other microorganisms. But it can be taken out and sent to recycling, hopefully, if there is any recycling facility close. So kind of to wrap up this Bioinas project, in the project, we try to balance aesthetics, functionality, and sustainability. And in that process, we customize, the way that we customized for aesthetics was through adding some embellishments, but also adding some pigments and color, or keeping it just like in a natural color. And the other thing that we have explored was customizing for interaction, which was like with embedded NFC chips or using thermosensitive or photosensitive pigments in the nails. But bio-nails also follow this closed loop life cycle approach, like thinking of sustainability from the very beginning, making our design choices, trying to support as much as possible a closed loop life cycle. We envision short-term wear, just because nails in general, when we get our nails done, we just wear them for like 2 weeks. They don't last for long. And we are constantly, changing color, changing shape, or there's a new design. So a short-term wear is something that we notice that it fits within this category of beauty technology. And we also explore 3 end-of-life approaches, kind of breaking it down, the end of life, so then it brings more design opportunities, or we can see new avenues for intervention when we can have the end of life not just as one, but kind of breaking it down in multiple steps. And to finish, I would like to, mention how does this all relate to the work that I see outside interactive textiles. So this was like, I kind of like use a slide that I presented in my second year of my PhD, which was like, how do I imagine these biomaterials, and in this case was the bio-based fibers, broader impact to be. And I imagined, because of like the material properties that I saw back then in the biomaterials and all the opportunities that it brought to the design space and fabrication space as well, that all the knowledge gathered could be used for innovating into 3D printing materials, for instance. It can be used for like, supporting more open source hardware or fabrication workflows. It can be used also, the knowledge generated for like envisioning interactive textile architecture, or even in soft robotics. So I have this slide here because it was really kind of reminding me that like a few years ago, I thought this is possible. I've explored so far a couple of these, which is like, now we're developing 3D printing material, and we develop like a machine later. But from my background in architecture, I would really like to see it also in the built environment, which can be like interior spaces, or even like a much bigger scale. Just like something that I could imagine, for instance, is that after reading about this fabric project, there is a lot of innovation that was like using Fusion 360. It really, the modeling software helps to support a lot of the design iteration and the design thinking, even of like the designers developing a new product. I also see that like material customization, in which we have agency, as designers, we have agency over like our material composition that also not only supports technical or mechanical outcomes that we are looking for, but also it can support other values such as sustainability. It could be part of this material customization space. And we can customize, these materials for interactivity as well. I can imagine like biofoam pressure sensor being used in seats, not necessarily for bikes, but just in cushion in general. We might wanna, yeah, just kind of like, if we think that in the future we will have a lot of interactive materials in our daily lives, we can also think that biomaterials will take place in there in the same way that we currently use petroleum-based materials. So I would like to see biomaterials as another category of materials that designers could have access to. And we need to understand them. And that's why a lot of research is happening in this space. I also see a space, an opportunity for digital fabrication workflows to exist for biomaterials, and we are developing them like little by little. But that also needs to be supported, I think, from the digital tools that we use. So if we can have like biomaterial simulations in 3D modeling, kind of showing how the materials behave, that would be, I think, also a way of supporting designers in their creative practice. That also has like sustainability in mind. So that is kind of like the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions. These are like my name tags, and you can find me on social media, or this is my email, and I am open to hear from you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Very happy to answer them. Thank you.